first time I ever went to Africa, I was on safari in the Masai Mara in Kenya. And it was one of the most magical experiences of my life. And then after the safari, the guide asked us if we wanted to go to a refugee camp. Now, I had never been to a refugee camp before. I had never seen extreme poverty before, so I had no idea what to expect. But we all went, and we got out of our vehicles, and we stepped into the camp, and this sea of red dirt just covered us. And there were hundreds of these mud huts that are huts made out of mud bricks. And they kind of look like little igloos. And I'm standing next to one, and this one child comes out, and he has this big smile on his face, and another child comes out, and then another child, and a few adults, and a few more children. And I'm thinking, well, hold on a second. The huts are this big, and 20 people just came out, so there must be like some underground tunnel built from this igloo to Tanzania. Another child comes out, and he has a smile on his face that is so big that it cracks me in two. And I'm thinking, how is it that I'm standing in the middle of extreme poverty with kids, adults, people that have nothing, and they are so unbelievably happy? And I look over at my guide, and I'm sure that he notices this perplexed look on my face. And I said, how does this change? And he looked at me and said one word: education. Now, that meant nothing to me at the time. I wouldn't even begin to know how to process that. But all of a sudden, there was this strange resolve that came over me that was so calm, so clear, like a moment of clarity. And there was a little voice that said, this is where you're going to end up in your life, Mary, in Africa. Now, that didn't make any sense to me, and I didn't think about that moment or that voice for another 15 years. And 15 years later, I woke up, and I was so disconnected to my life. I was not living a life of purpose. I had no passion. I was not contributing to anything or anyone but myself. And I felt like I was just on the planet sucking up air. So I got on my knees and I prayed for inspiration like my good Italian Catholic grandmother taught me how to do. And that inspiration turned into creating one of the first socially conscious brands in retail called OmniPeace. Now, before that launch, we're getting ready to throw this big event, and we have the t-shirts ready, and we have a couple celebrities that are going to be our ambassadors to talk about it, and we have a chic celebrity boutique that's going to launch the t-shirts, and we are ready to go, and we are so excited. And 2 weeks before that launch, I go to my annual doctor's appointment, and I'm sitting on the examination table, and he's doing this ultrasound on my stomach, and he's looking at my stomach and the monitor, and then at me and my stomach and the monitor and me, and he keeps doing this. Then he calls his doctor friend in, and he comes in, and they're in the corner whispering and both looking at me now. And my doctor says, get dressed and meet me in my office. Where he proceeds to tell me that I have stage 3 ovarian cancer. I'm going to have a surgery in the next 72 hours. I'm going to start chemotherapy right after that, and I might as well write off the next year of my life. Because if I'm not at home getting sick, I'm going to be at the hospital getting sick. Now, for anyone that's ever been told that they have cancer, it's like you've just been catapulted to another stratosphere. Because it's almost like our brains weren't made to process this kind of information. It's like it didn't fit. And all I could think of was like, I have a party to throw. I have a t-shirt company to launch. I have schools to build. But what I had to do was make a decision. So I go home and I'm sitting in my office where OmniPeace had come to life, and there were vision boards and hundreds of sample t-shirts and mementos and scraps of paper. And there was this one t-shirt next to me, and there was a hang tag on it. And I picked it up, and it said, can you think of a better return in life than saving one? Can you think of a better return in life than saving one? And I thought to myself, hold on a minute. I have cancer. I have amazing doctors. I have great health care. I have family. I have friends that are going to support me, and I'm going to be okay. But those people in a refugee camp, they don't have any of that. They don't have a choice. So when they get sick, they probably don't make it. And I'm going to quit. Because what I didn't see in that refugee camp was a whole lot of quitters. And I thought, no way, I'm not going to quit this time. We went on to launch OmniPeace, and it went viral before viral even existed. We sold millions of t-shirts. We raised millions of dollars. We built 7 schools in Senegal, Mali, Malawi. We had every celebrity wearing our t-shirt. We were in the weeklies every week. We educated over 50,000 children. Now, thank you. So one would think I had done okay, right? I was living a life of passion, purpose, I was connected. And that voice came back to me. And what it said was, this isn't what we meant. And I knew I had to go back to Africa. And this time I decided to guerrilla trek in Rwanda. I land in Rwanda, my cab driver picks me up, and we become friends because I'm there for a week. Now, all I know about Rwanda is Hotel Rwanda, which is what most people know. What I didn't know is that it's nothing like that. It is the 5th safest country on the planet. It is the fastest growing country on the continent, and it is the only country in the world that will go from a 3rd world country to a 1st world country in the next 25 years. And it is one of the most magnificent places I've ever been to in my whole life. So I'm on my way to trek, and my cab driver turns and looks at me and says, I want you to build a music school here. I know you build schools. He was a keyboard player in his church, which is really the only time that you see instruments in a 3rd world country is in a church because they're expensive. And he wanted his son to learn how to play, and there were no music schools in Rwanda for children. Now, what he didn't know about me is that I have absolutely no musical talent whatsoever. I am the anti-musician. Anything that has anything to do with music, I am bad at. So I was flattered and I politely declined. Now, the universe has a funny way of doing things when you say no. But I went on that trek, and boy, if you want to be in a 3D Marvel movie, go on a gorilla trek. Because you are this close to gorillas, and it's like having lunch with King Kong and his family. And they are the most unbelievable creatures, and they're as big as this auditorium. And they tell you that you can't look at them in the eye. So you're kind of trying to look at them, but you're not supposed to. So you're looking away, looking back, and they're looking right at you. So it's this whole cat and mouse game. But what I didn't know is that it was going to be this profoundly spiritual experience, like on a DNA level. Like I felt like structurally it changed me. I go back to the lodge after the trek, and I am covered in dirt, right? We've been trekking for 10 hours. It's the greatest day of my life. And I reach for a book that I've traveled with for years. It's always been by my bedside. And I've read it 100 times. I open to a page and a paragraph, I promise you, I've never read before. And it says this: your job now is to be at the place where you may be of maximum helpfulness to others, even if that requires you visit the most sordid spot on earth on such an errand. I'm in Rwanda. Keep on the firing line of life with your motives, and you will be protected and kept unharmed. And I know exactly what I'm in Rwanda to do. We went on to build not only 1, but 2 music schools, including the first music school ever created in a refugee camp. So I was back in that, not in that refugee camp, in the Kaziba refugee camp in Rwanda, building a music school, and it was the greatest work that we've ever done to date. I saw kids that had never seen, touched, or played an instrument before in their whole lives connect to music like they've never connected before. It was like we plugged them into a light socket and they lit up, and they unleashed all of this talent that they had all along, but it was just laying dormant until we handed them the vehicle to unleash it, or in this case, handed them the instrument to unleash it. It was like handing them a defibrillator. Like we resuscitated them back to a life that they never even knew that they had. They learned how to read, write, and compose their own music within 2 weeks' time. But before they touched those instruments, they said to the teacher, we need to go outside and dance. Because that was the only way they knew how to connect to music. And boy, these kids went outside and they danced like you've never seen kids dance. And they came back inside and they picked up those instruments and they just lit up like Christmas trees. And they learned how to do the notes by tapping on the different parts of their bodies. So the different parts of their bodies were the different notes. And that's how they learned how to write notes. And then they put lyrics to those notes, and then they composed songs, and then there was a crumbling stage that had been there next to the school that we built. And they performed on that stage like they were the Rolling Stones and had been performing for 85 years. They were unbelievable. And by the way, our little crumbling school wasn't so sturdy itself, but there were 12 kids inside those four walls, and there was a collective consciousness that made us all feel like we could conquer the world. Music gave these kids a voice to transform their identity, a choice to escape the poverty line, and a vision to change the future. They laughed, and they had passion, they had purpose, they were connected to their life. But when they laughed, there was this ripple. It's like you could physically see the ripple from the bottom of their feet out the top of their heads, and it was magnificent. You know, having built music schools and having built primary schools, conventional education is not enough for children living in poverty. It's not enough for children who have suffered extreme trauma, and it is not enough for children who are products of genocide. We need more. Music alleviates the psychological and developmental damage that poverty creates. You know, there's research shows that music fires up the neurons in our brain that would otherwise lay dormant if you were never to touch an instrument in your whole life. The bottom line is, kids need more. They need music. Music is not only a universal language, it is a universal healer. It's a game changer. So I want to invite you all to do this. I want to invite you all to put an instrument in a child's hand that otherwise may not be able to afford that, and see if it fosters creativity. See if they start thinking outside of the box, and see if it shapes a brighter future for them. We all want to leave a legacy. We all want to leave something behind that matters to somebody or a whole lot of people. That's a way that you can leave a legacy. OmniPeace is leaving a legacy because we've just partnered with the Rwandan government to launch the first music education platform for the entire country. We will train the first generation of Rwandan music teachers and put a music teacher in every one of the 3,000 primary schools in the country, which means we will ensure every child has a music education in addition to a basic education, which has never been done in the history of any country before, much less a third world country that suffered a genocide 27 years ago. So not only will we be making music, we'll be making history. I'd like to leave you, I'm going to leave you with one thing. What is your job now to be at the place where you may be of maximum helpfulness to others? My answer was, it's time to face the music. Thank you.